Every journey begins in the mind. A flight of imagination. A vision of what might lie across the universe.
Desperate run!
Or within the deepest regions of the subconscious. Dr. Edward Pretorius is about to embark on such a journey.
It's out of control. You've got to turn it off. Something's coming. What the hell is that? I'm going to kiss you. Let it happen, Crawford. Humans are such easy prey.
From the makers of Re-Animator, from beyond.
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and other podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie. We're part of the Main Damie Network, and to find more from us, check out the website at themaindamie.com or on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at themaindamie. We are also now a proud member of Geek Vibes Nation. You can find them at gvnation.com. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Del Vecchio. With me, as always, is Dan Aquino and Mark Meyer. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello. I thought for the first 5 minutes or so of this movie, I was watching the wrong one because I did not recognize Jeffrey Combs at all.
You didn't recognize him?
I'd only seen him in Re-Animator, so for some reason the glasses. It was like a Clark Kent Superman moment.
Pulled the Clark Kent on you. That's classic Jeffrey Combs.
Does he not have glasses in Re-Animator?
He does wear glasses in Re-Animator, and this he doesn't.
Oh, I thought he did in this one too. Anyway, yes, before we get into this week's movie, guys, what did you watch this week?
Dude, we don't have time. I'll break it down. I just finished watching 30 Days of Night, and that kind of prompted, whatever happened to Josh Hartnett? And I was like, then you watch the rest of the movie, oh, yeah, that's what happened to Josh Hartnett. Watched the entire Conjuring series, essentially, like Annabelle, Conjuring, Conjuring 2, all of the Insidious movies.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a lot done. First two Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the first two Friday the 13th movies. I think there's definitely more in there. We're watching Bly Manor. It's just nonstop horror movies, man. We don't have time to go over everything.
All right. What's your impressions of Bly Manor, real quick?
It's not a horror show, really. Have you gentlemen watched it?
Yes.
No. Okay, so I'm not going to give it away, but it's not as creepy as Hill House. Mm-hmm. I think Hill House really, it leaned more on the poltergeisty kind of thing, and definitely the haunted house aspect. Bly Manor is really just a tragedy masquerading as a horror.
Sure.
But the acting's really good, except for the main character, Danny, who it's when people say, oh, that person looks like they have a stick up their butt. She walks constantly as if there's something just lodged firmly up there. But yeah, I really, the kids are really good. Yeah, I like everyone except for her. And then not that she's bad, it's just that she's probably the weakest link in the show.
What about you, Mark? What have you watched?
Nothing at all. Great for Dan.
All right, perfect. We're moving on. This week, I haven't watched this much this week because I was away this weekend. So I watched a few that I wrote articles for, including Scare Me from 2020, which was good. Not really much of a horror movie, but very good. I watched Holidays, which was terrible.
Oh, that's so bad. It brought back memories when you said, oh, Seth Green. I'm like, ugh, yeah, I remember that one.
Ooh, that's a bad one. The only one worth mentioning is the Father's Day story of that. And it's not really much of a horror story, much more is just very sad. Mm-hmm. And then it just ends on a horror note. And I was like, you cut this a minute shorter, and it's a really excellent short film. But yeah, that sucked. The Kevin Smith one is the worst. He's like the biggest name attached to that, and his story is so bad.
I don't think he's good at horror. Have you ever seen Tusk?
I didn't hate Tusk. This might be the second worst thing he's ever done. The first being Yoga Hosers.
Yoga Hosers is that's another horror movie that he did.
That might be the worst thing anybody's done. That could be one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
At least from an accomplished director.
Sure. Yeah, Death Metal Zombies is much worse than Yoga Hosers. But it has an excuse.
Right. Because have you seen, what is it, Red State?
Red State's interesting.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
No.
But
I think part of it has to do with the fact that John Goodman's in it, so it kind of carries the material.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just he's got to move on from his daughter, man.
Mm-hmm.
He really does.
I respect it. You know, I mean, that's your daughter. I get it.
Like I know people pile on a lot with her, and I don't think she was the worst part of the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, but she's not good in this short. She's like, it's probably tough because you probably haven't seen it in a while, but she's reading it directly off the script, every line, and it's like she's maybe has like 5 or 6 lines throughout the whole movie, and they're all just really poorly delivered.
I give her the benefit of the doubt. I think this is a Sandler-esque type of thing going on where, you know, Sandler always hires his buddies.
Yeah, and his wife and his kids.
Yeah, he just gets everyone he loves in there, and I get it. It's cool. And Kevin Smith is that guy. You know, he just has his buddies around him at all times. And, you know, his daughter is someone that he cares about, obviously. But, you know, maybe later in life she'll become a better actress. Yeah. Who knows? But I get it. I understand. I would do the same thing if I were a famous director and my kid was just like, I want to be in the movie, Daddy. Yeah. Okay. Read these lines.
Yeah. I guess part of it, too, is like he's got to be 50 at this point. And it's like, all right, guy, time to get I feel the same way with Adam Sandler. It's like, it's time to get a new shtick.
Yeah.
Like Adam Sandler does do these movies where he's an actual actor, and that's great, but like your bread and butter needs to grow up a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. You need to evolve just a tad.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem with a lot of these comedian guys when you get into their 40s and their 50s, they're still doing the same things that made them famous, and things evolve. You know, the world, you know, the sensibilities of comedy changes very quickly. It was like, when's the last time you saw a good Will Ferrell movie? It's because he's still doing the same thing he did 18 years ago. And it's like, well, comedy's moved on now. We're interested in seeing other things. But that's my rant on holidays. We saw Color Out of Space, which is the Nicolas Cage HP Lovecraft movie, which is weird as hell, and he gets all cagey. And then revisits Rocky Horror Picture Show. Rewatched that. Was watching The Evil Dead. Didn't get to finish it. I feel like there's something else too, but I don't remember.
There's so many.
Oh, I watched Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, which is actually my favorite Michael Myers sequel.
Really?
Yes.
Is that the one when the little girl is like supposed to be Michael?
At the end, yes.
Yes. Okay.
So
yeah,
4
that
and
one
5,
wasn't terrible.
4 and 5 followed Jamie, the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 is when she's a mute throughout of it because of the events of the fourth one.
I think that's the Thorn trilogy, right? Isn't that what they call it?
4, 5, and 6 are the Thorn trilogy.
Yeah.
5 is the one where they introduced the man in the hat.
Yes, the man in black, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And Paul Rudd is in 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a weird trilogy. Yeah. Yes. Tommy Doyle. But 4 I think is very good. I like 4.
I still think, you know, it goes Halloween 3, Halloween 2, and then like everything else is kind of blurry, but I would say I do remember Halloween 4 out of all of them.
Yeah.
So I would probably put it there.
I like 4 more than I like 2.
Okay.
I don't know why.
And I feel like you could easily just flip-flop those.
Yeah. And that's about all I watched this week, except for this week's movie. And it was Dan's choice, which was actually a movie I had watched before you picked it. So it actually took away from one of my articles.
I apologize. We do that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, we've done it more than once. For our Halloween one-shot that you did last year, yep. I wound up choosing a character that like specifically interfered with your idea. Like, all right, well, we need to not do that again. So here I am again, just trampling all over your genius.
You know what? I would have watched the movie twice anyway, so it's fine.
Oh, cool.
So you want to introduce this week's movie?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week I chose From Beyond, the HP Lovecraft movie. I don't know why I chose it. I'd never seen it, and it just looked interesting. I'd never even like heard anything about it, but it was on Shudder. I was just kind of going through, I'm like, oh, this looks pretty cool. It was one of the first movies that they had up there. I looked it up. It had pretty good ratings. I thought it seemed right up our alley.
Okay. What about you, Mark? Where are you coming from with From Beyond?
The only thing I knew about it was after Dan had mentioned it, he mentioned that it had the people from Re-Animator in it, and I was excited. It was one of those where going into it, I was more like looking forward to it than being like apprehensive to some of the other movies because I hadn't heard of them before. Until I realized that I had the correct movie on because I had to go to IMDb. I'm like, oh, so yeah, okay, that is the same guy. I was fully in from like moment one, like when that creature comes and bites him in the face. I'm like, okay, I need to find out what this is all about, and it got me immediately. I know it's kind of weird to figure out which horror movies I get into, but they just need to hook me early, and this one did. That opening scene's real good.
Okay, yeah. I hadn't seen this movie before. I believe the first time I heard about it was from, I think Red Letter Media did a review of that. So it's kind of like their special programming where they've kind of take an older movie that they've seen before and kind of revisit it a little bit and do like a full like 30 to 40 minute review of it. That's the first time I think I've ever heard of it. And I hadn't seen it before I watched it this past week. And it's wild, man. It's the horniest movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
I find that hard to believe.
It's probably not, but man, this movie is fucking horny.
Yeah, just kind of like out of nowhere. I'm not like saying I disapprove of it because it's pretty excellent. But yeah, just like all of a sudden it turns up the horny factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Dan, what would you say like quickest synopsis of this movie? Give us a quick brief, like 25 words or less, essentially.
Two scientists have a machine who I guess opens, or no, it reveals these like ghost-like creatures or other dimension-like creatures, and when you turn it on, it drives you crazy, or like I guess it awakens an inner desire of yours. And crazy creature designs, Barbara Crampton in bondage gear, Ken Foree in like super short shorts. And
banana hammocks, basically.
But sex dungeons. But yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. There's a device, you turn it on, you see weird creatures, it drives you crazy and makes you horny, and just awesome special effect, like awesome practical effects in this movie. If you like practical effects like I do, you're gonna love this movie.
Yeah, so essentially it's supposed to awaken your pineal glands, which is supposed to is considered the third eye, which is supposed to give you that sixth sense into this other dimension that kind of lays on top of ours, but because we don't have that sixth sense, we can't see it except for when this device is on. The pineal gland is also what people think is calcified when you drink fluoridated water.
Oh,
it makes
really?
you docile. Yes, for the crazy people out there. We haven't forgotten about you crazy people. We hear you. About
they're seen now. our one listener from like the deep state or something like that. It's like finally they realize.
Yep, it's for you. Yeah, so that's essentially what this device is doing, and that's why we have those little worm penises shooting out of Jeffrey Combs' head.
I didn't quite understand what that was. They did a quick. Barbara Crampton's character does mention like, oh, I think that's the pineal gland. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm not smart enough to understand that. So I'm just gonna shut my mouth and make sure like, oh yeah, I get that. Cool, yeah.
And essentially the worm penises are basically the third eye is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Everything's so phallic.
100%. I think Lovecraft had some things going on, man.
Yeah.
I was just reading. Things. Yeah. I was just reading up about him. And it all makes sense because he's a sub-6er.
Yeah.
He tiptoes the line, but he's below 6, and that, as we all know, sub-6 footers, we're all nuts.
Yep. You're all crazy.
Yep.
Not like me though.
No, you're the regular one in the group.
Yeah, this movie's wild. I love it. It was great. Yeah. It was a fun watch.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with everything Dan said with the creature design. Yeah, I more lean towards practical effects too for this stuff because it just makes it either seem much more campier or a lot more creepier depending on what the practical effect is. So that's why I lean more towards that. The special effects can be way too cheesy. I just think the overacting at times in this, especially when they're supposed to be under the influence of the machine, just made me laugh. Especially the scientist in the beginning that you see later, just anytime he's on screen.
Dr. Edward Pretorius.
Yep.
He hams it up, man. He and Jeffrey Combs, they ham it up real good.
Yeah, it's real. It's real.
I like how there's really only like 2 settings in this movie.
Yeah.
And the majority of it is in the house where Combs and Ted Sorrell, they do their experiment. I like that idea that it's really just, it's almost like a bottle movie, but it doesn't feel like it. Like it feels like the house is so expansive and so much is being done in that house that like, oh, where are they going next? Like they're in the basement, they're in the attic, they're in the sex dungeon, they're in the kitchen, but it doesn't feel tight. So it works.
Yeah, it's the opposite of Phantasm, where I got bored by the lack of sets in that. But in this, it's probably less than what's in that movie, and I was in the whole time just because things happen in the sets. There's not really any downtime. I think the worst downtime is like when you're introduced to Barbara Crampton's character, and then after the first night, when they're eating breakfast. Outside of that, there's always something happening or something like that's got your tension up. And I think that's what makes it different for me from that movie and why I'm into one over the other, despite that thing they share in terms of lack of sets.
Sure. It's a pretty tight movie too. It's only 85 minutes long, so it gets going and keeps going. Yeah. From Beyond, from 1986, directed by Stuart Gordon, and this is our 3rd Stuart Gordon film. We've done Re-Animator and Dolls in the past. And unfortunately, Stuart Gordon died this past March. So rest in peace, Stuart. This is the first time we've done a movie of his posthumously. Written by Dennis Paoli, based on an HP Lovecraft story. It stars Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, Ken Foree, Ted Sorrell, Carolyn Purdy Gordon, Bunny Summers, Bruce Maguire. Rotten Tomatoes score of 78%, IMDb score of 6.7. Budget $4.5 million, and the box office was a paltry 1.26. And a quarter of what it cost. So
I could see that. Yeah, this is definitely not for everyone.
Yeah. I'm surprised they gave them $4.5 million to do this movie, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't remember, and we don't really have to look it up, but was Re-Animator enough of a hit that they thought?
I think Re-Animator was not necessarily a smash, but it probably made its money back and more.
Yeah, so that's probably why they thought, let's give them a little more money and maybe they can do better or whatever.
Sure.
It's the 80s.
It is a weird movie to give $4.5 million to, though. Yeah. They should have read the script first. Like, this is a little weird.
I mean, the Super Mario Brothers movie got a hell of a lot of money.
Well, I mean, that's got that name recognition, though.
That's
hottest video game of all time at that point.
I can tell you why. Because Re-Animator only cost $900,000 and made $2 million.
So it made double its money.
Yeah, so that's why. So they figured out, we'll more than double the budget, and I guess they bet on the wrong horse there. It was not meant for everyone. I would consider this more of a cult movie. Again, Jeffrey Combs is perfectly cast in this. I think everyone does a good job. Like again, we have Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs teaming up from Re-Animator. So they have that connection, and you can already feel that. So I wonder if the studio realized, they did so well on Re-Animator together. Let's pair them up again. And I mean, Ken Foree, he is a big time horror icon, and he's just cool as shit. So you put those together, you feel like you got a winning formula. Yeah.
I think it works too. Yeah, but it should, and I mean, $4.5 million really is not that much when it comes down to it. So it probably was not that big of a gamble to give Stuart Gordon that kind of money. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this movie. But as you said, it's a cult movie, and because 2 of us are really into horror, and this is the first time either of us are seeing this movie. So
yeah,
it shows you how kind of deep in the woods we're talking here.
Every Halloween or October, I always feel like we discover a little hidden gem, and I think for October 2020, this was my hidden gem.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You guys want to get into the plot?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Dan, what you got for us?
All right. So I am here to tell you about our good friend Tia and her top 10 with Tia podcast. I almost said Tia Carrera. I don't know why. Tia, I apologize. I think someone sent me a GIF or a GIF of Tia. Sorry. Anyway, go check out Top 10 with Tia. It's a weekly podcast where Tia and her friends get together and they discuss top 10 lists every week. She's awesome. You could follow her on Twitter at TC_Stark. She's a good friend of ours. She's just a good person in general. Go check her out.
Okay, and we're going to take a quick break, but before we do, we're going to take a quick second to listen to some messages from friends of the podcast. So we will be right back.
Hey, this is Ken M.
Padawan J.
Coach Duffy. From the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast. Every week, the ODPH is talking sports, movies, TV, comics, and more. It's always a parlay of topics on each episode. You can find the ODPH on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and wherever you find great podcasts, such as the one you're listening to right now. Don't forget to check out OchoDuroParlayHour.com, where you can find the links to all of the ODPH social media accounts, links to the bands whose music you hear each week on the show, hashtag 607 podcast info, and parlay points, our companion blog section of the show. Thanks for listening to the ODPH. Now get back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Welcome, travelers. Seems like you're looking for a story. Well, I got one for you. It involves adventure, friendship, and all sorts of...
Earl, why don't you tell him about that time I stole that big-ass melon?
Yeah, I was going for more...
Or you could tell him about the time I kicked your ass, Earl.
I wouldn't ever tell him.
Do I need to get my ref gear on?
Okay, everyone, shut up. Now come with me as I tell you a story from afar. Hey everybody, my name's David. I'm the DM for From Afar Podcast. A From Afar Podcast is all about four friends separated by distance, but brought together by adventure. Hope you all stop by and give us a listen. Thanks.
And welcome back, and now it's time to get into the plot of From Beyond. We open on Jeffrey Combs hard at work typing on an 80s period computer. As the computer flashes a ready alert, he goes off and starts flipping switches and dials on a variety of machines. They all seem to be connected to this pyre-like structure in the middle of the room. Combs flips a switch that turns on this glowing light. The room lights up pink and wind starts emitting from somewhere. Suddenly, he sees a worm-like creature float above his head and then is attacked by it, biting him on the cheek. He turns off the machine and then runs downstairs. He runs downstairs and bangs on a locked door, telling Dr. Edward Pretorius that the resonator has worked. So Pretorius comes up to the attic and turns on the resonator. Combs grabs his head and Edward starts freaking out, saying he wants to see more than any man has ever seen. Combs
That's never a good thing, right?
No.
When someone like forcefully grabs you and says, "I want to see more than I've ever seen," that's a huge red flag.
Yep.
In any situation, not just when you have a giant science experiment in the middle of the room.
Oh yeah, yeah. If Jen were to run down the stairs right now and grab me by the head and tell me she wants to see more than anyone has ever seen, I would probably flee for my life. Call the cops, guys. I gotta go.
So Combs tries to turn off the machine, but he can't. He says the resonator is running itself, and then Edward says something is coming. Meanwhile, a nosy neighbor tries to call the cops on them, and then her dog runs out of the house towards the house. So she chases after. She follows the dog into the house and up the stairs, where she starts hearing Edward and Jeffrey Combs arguing. I only call him Jeffrey Combs here because he hasn't been named yet. She finds the dog, she picks him up, her dog Bunny, who has found itself at a closed door. At that moment, an axe comes through the door, and then Jeffrey Combs comes running out, and they both go running down the steps out of the house. She drops the dog, who runs up to the attic. The cops show up just as both of them get to the gates, and Combs gets arrested, and the woman remembers that her dog is there. And then we see Bunny sniffing about the prone body of Dr. Pretorius, who has no head. And then credits.
The entire time that this was going on, my inner homeowner in me just kept thinking, their electric bill must be through the roof. With all of these science experiments, man, I can only imagine how much they're paying for that.
Well, it comes into play, too, because they have to reroute all the electricity to the attic.
Right. So it's just like, I was like, man, imagine if we had that in my house. It would just be like PSE&G would have a fucking fit.
Mm-hmm. So the credits roll, and then we cut to the mental institution. A doctor at the mental facility is introduced to Dr. Catherine McMichaels, played by Barbara Crampton, who's being frumped down. Is a year away since Re-Animator, and they're trying to make her look really mousy. McMichaels has been hired by the DA's office to evaluate Crawford, a.k.a. Jeffrey Combs, to see if he is fit to stand trial for the murder of Edward Pretorius. Catherine gets led down a hallway and looks into some of the rooms, and there's always a guy jerking off.
Yeah.
Have to be.
That's what every movie producer and director thinks crazy people do. Like they just jerk off constantly.
It's like Silence of the Lambs. It happens. Feel like it happens in The Green Mile.
Yeah. If there's someone in a cell, there's a good chance, at least a 50-50 chance they're rubbing one out.
Right. You're probably gonna get cum thrown on you if given the chance. Especially if you're an attractive woman.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know how true that is. I doubt that's very true. At least I hope it's fake and that's not something that happens constantly. Like there's a medical journal out there, like, and then I came back in and there was semen everywhere.
That's the true origin story of Harley Quinn.
Right, the Joker.
I think Jonathan Demme just saw From Beyond and he's like, I'm going to steal that for Silence of the Lambs. My prestige picture.
I do want to see that in the gritty reboot. That should be in the Ayer cut, Mark.
Yeah.
The Joker just throws his semen at Harley Quinn.
Right, and that's kind of like what turns her white. No, it's well, I would imagine that Jared Leto actually did that on the set.
Probably.
I wanted to get closer to Margot Robbie, so I just jerked off in front of her. She ran away screaming, but I thought it really created the chemistry.
Learned from my hero, Louis C.K.
I was going to say classic Louis C.K. move.
That was his protege.
Yeah.
He came to him to learn what it's like to method act.
Right.
Jerk off in front of somebody.
I just lock him in the room, really. I mean, there's really no secret to it, Jared. Just, get him in a tight space and go to town.
Sometimes I tell them I'm jerking off over the phone when I'm not.
Right. It's a total mind fuck.
They don't know I'm not.
Right. And that's the power.
A hold for cut.
So anyway,
eventually she was brought in to meet Crawford. We find out Crawford is a physicist and he says he was assisting Pretorius with his experiments. The experiments were attempting to awaken the pineal gland, also believed to be the third eye, and it's to awaken a new sense, the sixth sense, of course. Crawford says that it worked and talks about the fact that they saw creatures. Crawford says that it, quote unquote, came and bit off Pretorius's head. As Crawford gets agitated, the attending doctors have the orderlies come in and to restrain him and ushers Catherine out. And Catherine orders a CAT scan to be done on Crawford. Crawford freaks out while he's in the CAT scan, but according to the CAT scan, his pineal gland is enlarged and is growing. So Catherine wants to recreate the experiment with Crawford in order to figure out what happened, despite the attending doctor's protests. The DA relents, saying they don't have much evidence against Crawford anyway, so he might not get convicted in trial. So he puts Crawford into the care of Catherine. So Crawford gets released into Catherine's custody, and she tells him that she believes him and wants to recreate the experiment. He begrudgingly accepts, and then they meet with Detective Bubba Brownlee.
That's an awesome name.
Yeah.
Played by Ken Foree, who will be accompanying them to the Pretorius house.
Yeah, that sounds like somebody that would be a huge college football star in the late 70s.
Oh, yeah.
Bubba Brownlee.
That is definitely a football name.
Doesn't matter what position on the field.
Right. I mentioned earlier that he's a horror icon. He's Dawn of the Dead, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's just so cool in this, too. And he has some good lines. He dresses fucking wild. I mean, not wild, but just like, I just keep imagining the short shorts, the bright red short shorts.
The bikini briefs.
Yeah. It's like, wow, man. Like, that's a statement.
Just bulge.
Yeah. Oh, and when he runs down the stairs in nothing but his underwear and just like full on, man, not even trying to hide. They didn't even need to stuff it. It was just like, that's 100% Ken. Pure Ken Foree. How come Ken Foree doesn't dance anymore?
I like to see that.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
They go to the house, and Crawford is not pleased, but Catherine tells him it's the only way for him to become a free man. So they go into the house, they go into the foyer, and Bubba falls over a set of giant electrical cables. This is where Crawford says he had to rewire the house because they needed more power, and then all of a sudden Crawford just mysteriously disappears. So Bubba and Catherine find the circuit breakers and turn on the power, then follow the electrical cables up the stairs. While they go searching for Crawford, Catherine hears a woman screaming, follows the sound upstairs to a kinky sex room where Bubba is playing a video of Pretorius having S&M sex with a woman. They then head up to the attic. There's a chalk outline of a body without a head up there, which made me laugh.
That was great. And like how they had, it was like not even like just like a half circle where the head would be. It was like a perfectly traced how the head was chopped up.
Right. That was someone's job, and they did a good one.
Yeah, nobody half-asses it.
You got
in
it,
this
man.
movie.
Or else
I would-
they're gonna fuck up the investigation.
How great would it have been if they did like a artist's like depiction of what they think the head might have been, just like a random, like maybe he had an afro or maybe he had something else going on there.
Then Crawford jumps out of the shadows with an axe, looking like he was trying to attack Catherine, but he was actually trying to destroy the resonator. Crawford mentions that the spot on the chalk outline is where it ate him, and that leads to a transition of Ken Foree cooking up some dinner. So later, they're back up at the attic, and Crawford is working on the resonator while Catherine is asleep. Crawford and Bubba kind of stare at her as she sleeps, which is kind of creepy, but then Crawford tells Bubba that Pretorius would often bring women over to the house, wine them, dine them, but would always end in screaming. Says the 5 senses wasn't enough for Pretorius. Catherine awakes, and Crawford says the resonator is ready. So Crawford gives some instructions, specifically not to move when the resonator is on and they are in the vibration field, then flips the switch. So Crawford and Catherine start to react, getting real horny-like, staring at each other. Bubba sees the creatures, which are little squid-looking things, so he heads towards them, reaches out, and one of them attacks his arm. Crawford goes to turn off the resonator, but then he hears the voice of Pretorius, and Pretorius comes out from behind the resonator stark naked. Says he didn't die, he just passed to the beyond. And Crawford doesn't believe it, so he says, "Why don't you touch me if it pleases you to see that I am real?" So Crawford walks up to him and touches him on the shoulder, and his shoulder kind of sinks into his fingers like silly putty. And he peels off his own face and says, "Bodies change, but his mind is indivisible."
Yeah, this is like the beginning of the really cool designs. The Pretorius goes through a bunch of transformations, each one more grotesque than the last.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. It's very creative.
Mm-hmm. This is
How
like
they-
the third movie in a row where we had like excellent practical effects.
Yes, and it's most of them are in the 80s.
Yep.
So it's like they perfected it. Yeah, it's so good with it. Pretorius is a madman, and it really shines through on how he looks. It's almost like his real self comes out. It reminded me of The Thing.
Yeah, very much.
A lot of the different transformations. It was really cool, man. I love that he's dripping and goopy and just like really freaky. And yeah, that's something that you don't see a lot every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then his head splits open and weird tentacle-like monster comes out and Bubba shoots at it and Crawford turns off the machine and he disappears. Then Bubba in turn throws up in the corner. The next morning, Catherine is exhilarated about the discovery. She says there might be a correlation between schizophrenia and an enlarged pineal gland. Also, the stimulation of the pineal gland may cause sexual stimulation because Bubba reports that he had an erection after this.
But it would have been funny if, like, yeah, it definitely is because I am in no way attracted to you, Crawford. I just want to let you know that I think you are abysmal. There's no chance that you and I get together.
So Catherine wants to run the experiment again. Both Bubba and Crawford are against it. She says everyone sleep on it and they'll figure it out after. They go to sleep and Catherine wakes up from her sleep with a headache, then heads up to the attic to examine the resonator. As Crawford and Bubba sleep, she turns on the resonator. As she turns it on, Crawford's pineal gland starts to throb and he heads upstairs. He tells her to turn it off and she says she needs to see more, just like Edward Pretorius said. He goes to turn it off, but she stops him by pulling him towards her and kissing him. As Crawford goes to turn it off, Pretorius shows up as a melty, gooey version of himself. He grabs Catherine by the neck and pulls her towards him. So then Crawford makes a break for it and runs downstairs to turn off the circuit breaker. Meanwhile, Pretorius rips Catherine's nightgown open and threatens to kiss her. His head then opens and a creature comes out and starts trying to eat her. So Bubba and Crawford go to the basement and find a worm creature downstairs. So I should mention, because it's not in my notes, that Bubba tackles Crawford down the steps because he thinks he's trying to escape.
It's such a good form tackle. And then they hit the stairs. And I'm like, how did neither of them die?
And he's in his underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bold move to tackle someone down the stairs in your underwear.
Yeah. Well, he was a football player, right? I'm sure all kinds of shenanigans happened in the locker room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeffrey Combs' character is just lucky he had underwear on.
Yeah.
Do you think Combs was just kind of like, he looked down and was like, oh, really? Come on, man. I know. You don't have to show everyone. Come on. I get it.
Yeah. Poor Barbara Crampton. She's always just getting pawed at by weird things in the 80s.
Right. Yeah, disembodied heads, weird creatures from the beyond. Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking if you're her. Like, you're reading a script, like, all right, who fondles me now?
Oh, Stuart, you crazy. So they go down to the base with a giant worm creature. So Bubba goes back to the kitchen to grab a knife as Crawford tries to turn the power off. Bubba stabs it, but doesn't do much, and the worm starts trying to eat Crawford. Bubba manages to pull the power cord, and the resonator turns off, so both Catherine and Crawford are dropped as the creatures disappear. Creature ate all of Crawford's hair, and Catherine cries as she turns off the switch on the resonator. So they bring Crawford to the sex room to rest, and Catherine says that she needs to continue the experiments without distraction. Bubba tells her that he's taking Crawford back, and she's acting like a junkie. He tells her to get dressed, and he leaves to get the car ready. As Bubba packs up the van, Catherine gets all horny all over the sex equipment, and she finds a dominatrix outfit, which she immediately puts on, and it fits her perfectly. She then climbs on top of an unconscious Crawford and straddles him, but Bubba walks in and is like, "Girl, what is you doing?"
I forget, does he kind of like watch her for a bit, or is it just immediate, hey, what the hell?
I think it's like a, hey, what the hell?
Okay. It's an interesting scene. Did you mention how Crawford is essentially, he looks like Gollum at this point?
he looks worse for the wear, definitely.
Yeah. So the weird worm-like creature in the basement pretty much swallows him whole almost, or at least up to the waist, and he spits him out bald.
Yeah.
Right? He's bald.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, it makes sense later, but I was like, that's so weird. Why are they doing this? And they just needed a reason to make him bald.
Yeah, basically.
All right, well, what are we going to do, guys? I don't know. Just have him, like, someone throw acid on him. Like, no, how about we get a giant fucking worm to eat him, and he has no hair. He's done. Brilliant. You struck gold. Let's do this.
Yeah, so she's straddling him as Bubba tells her what the fuck's going on. So she tries to come on to Bubba, and he barely resists, but he grabs her and forces her to look in the mirror and says, "Look at yourself. Is this who you want to be?" And she cries and says she doesn't even know anymore.
What if she said yes? I think she starts crying. Yeah, I do.
Okay, baby.
Right, like, it's go time.
Then meanwhile, Pretorius turns on the resonator from the beyond, and Crawford wakes up. So the three of them run up and turn off the machine, but Bubba tries to turn off the machine and gets zapped. So Catherine and Crawford get attacked by insects, but then the insects turn on Bubba and they eat him, basically leaving a half-eaten body.
Such a good kill.
Yeah.
So good. The effects are so well done. It's like he's melting into the floor, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
His face is there. Part of his arm is still there, but everything else is like skeleton, and it's such a good kill. That's my favorite of the entire movie.
Yeah, it's pretty well done. So then the Pretorius monster shows up with all his gooey tentacles. Catherine goes to grab a fire extinguisher, but one of Edward's appendages grabs her by the throat. Resonator continues to work on Crawford, and his pineal gland protrudes out of his head like a tiny little dick, and Crawford collapses. So Pretorius tries to envelop Catherine, but she manages to grab the fire extinguisher and douse the resonator, which turns it off. And then they wind up at the hospital. At the hospital, they work on Crawford, whose pineal gland is still moving around like a worm. Catherine gets admitted to the mental hospital somehow, which I don't think is a thing without some sort of trial.
Right. Well, I mean, back in the day, they just kind of threw you in there.
Yeah.
If you were, a woman and you were, like, talking
Hysterical.
Back to people. Yeah. Oh, she's crazy. Throw her in there.
So
Telling
Catherine,
you people, the Earth revolves around the sun. In
Burn
you go.
Witch. Catherine immediately gets sent for electrical shock therapy. Also a thing that probably doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. It's they're really hamming it up in this movie. They're taking all sorts of liberties.
And then meanwhile, Crawford wakes up out of his bed and then sneaks away. The attending doctor goes to check on Crawford and finds that he has left, so she tells the cop to call security. Then she follows a trail of blood into the pathology lab, where she finds Crawford eating a brain.
The shot when they open the door and then she puts the light on and you see Jeffrey Combs there squatting with the brain made me laugh out loud while I was watching it, because it was it looks
like a raccoon eating out of trash.
I was like, what was the direction for that? Like, why squatting? Like,
It's probably exactly the note. Be a raccoon.
dude, yeah. I just laughed out loud, and I had to do the quick 10-second rewind on Shudder just to be like, that is what I saw, right?
So the doctor tries to usher Crawford back to his bed, but then his pineal gland starts to take over again, and he starts to feast on her brain. And then, meanwhile, Catherine is about to get electric shock when all the staff is put on alert to find Crawford. As they're undoing her straps to put her back in her room, she hits the orderly in the head with an overhead light and escapes. Crawford makes it to the parking lot and sees Catherine drive away in a van. Then an ambulance pulls up, bringing a patient into the hospital. Crawford attacks one of the EMTs, pulling his eyeball out, and then kills the other one. He then steals the ambulance and drives away. Catherine then makes it to the Pretorius house and heads up to the attic. Catherine sets a bomb, which I guess she just had handy, up to the resonator and goes to head out.
By the way, it is the most Acme brand looking bomb
Yeah.
in the history of movies. And that includes Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like,
Yeah.
this looks like something that they literally, somebody saw a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon and was like, oh, the bomb needs to be way bigger than it needs to be. Because everybody needs to know it's a bomb.
Yeah.
And then for some reason she sets it for 5 minutes.
That's standard, I'd imagine, right?
You got to give
Standard
yourself some
movie.
time.
Yeah. Also, I have no idea what a real bomb looks like. Do any of you guys know what it really looks like?
I don't think I've ever seen a bomb.
Yeah, me neither. I mean,
No.
wink, wink for the FBI, who's definitely listening. We have no idea what they look like. So I guess that's what a bomb is.
I don't know how she's on the run. I don't know how she acquired this
Exactly.
bomb.
She probably she's a scientist, man. They whipped that shit up in a couple minutes. She MacGyvered it.
Yeah, she had the Anarchist cookbook in her back
Right.
pocket.
Right.
It's probably in that van that she happened to steal. Oh, thank God.
Right.
There's a
What are
bomb.
the odds?
That's lucky. What if she stole a van that was set to blow up that hospital?
Oh, then she's a hero.
Hero.
It's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, all these bombs in here. This is super effective, efficient.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have laughed more with the actual bomb that was there, or if she would have pulled out a novelty old-fashioned just circular brown thing with a little wick, or black
Yeah.
thing with a little wick out the top and put it
Or
on
like
top
one of the
thing.
TNT plungers.
Plunger. Yeah.
That would have been pretty good. That would have been great. I would like to see that in a movie. We got to bring that back.
So Catherine makes it to the Pretorius house and heads up to the attic, and she sets the bomb. So she's attacked by Crawford, who chains her up to the sex room, and he goes to devour her head like he did the EMT, and she bites off his pineal gland worm thing. Ooh, that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely deserved it, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Then Pretorius turns on the resonator again, and Crawford argues with Pretorius, calling him impotent and pathetic, and then runs down the steps, where he is attacked by a bat-like creature that twists his head off. The wormy creatures show up in the sex room and wind up chewing Catherine's restraints off, so then she distracts them with a little book of matches that she lights on fire. So they go to kind of like moths to a flame, basically. She runs down the steps and sees Crawford's headless body and a bunch of worm creatures, so she heads up back to the attic. The Pretorius creature is up there and grabs her by the ankles, but then Crawford starts to emerge from Pretorius, fighting with him. They're kind of like a creature that is kind of combined, sort of like Society, the end of Society.
Yes. Yeah, the
Another-
giant orgy.
That's one movie we've shielded you from, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh. And it's
Thank
available
you.
to watch, too. It's another 80s masterpiece.
I like that he is like completely back to normal character, like hair and all
Right.
at this point.
But again, that's such a cool concept, and the
Yeah.
way they do it, it's like the two skulls are biting each other, and he's emerging out of this giant carcass. It's so interesting and creative to look at, and it's so messy, but this is gonna sound weird, but it's like beautiful in a way of how they decided to create it. It's not
Yeah.
beautiful to look at, but it's just like, wow, that is so interesting.
Yeah, they really outdid themselves with this movie. It's wild.
They did, and that's where that $4 million budget went.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they definitely didn't go to sets because it's one set, really.
Yeah. See, now if I could go back in time, I would go back to 1986 and tell people, you gotta go see From Beyond. You gotta see it. It's such a good movie. That would be my contribution to time travel. Everyone else is saving the world, and I'm like, you gotta go see From Beyond.
Yeah, you make it the #1 movie of
Of 1986.
6. Yeah.
And this weird guy came back, kept telling me to go see From Beyond.
And the the Soviet Union falls 3 years early.
Yeah.
Right. Because everyone is just so like everyone is united from watching From Beyond. And it's just like Barbara Crampton, like, go see her, she's in bondage wear. Go see it,
Yep.
it's great.
It unites the world.
Right. Barbara Crampton, you would have saved everyone. If only people had known. So I apologize. That's on me.
That's right. Well, man, hey, once you build a time machine, you have all the time in the world.
That's right. Yeah, that's only one of the things I could fix. But I want that to be a movie where someone goes back in time and just fixes like such menial, stupid things
that have huge consequences.
Yeah, that are more important than like stopping Hitler or, you know, just like really like what people think is catastrophic.
Right.
Like, yeah, you just like fix like little things here and there, and it turns out like, oh, we've solved world hunger, or oh, we stopped climate change. Everything is great now because Dan went back and told everyone to watch From Beyond.
So Pretorius and Crawford fight. Meanwhile, Catherine manages to break free, and she jumps out the window just as the bomb goes off. The attic explodes, and Catherine lands on the ground, breaking her leg in at least 2 places.
No idea why we need to see that.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why.
Movie's over. Just you throw an adding insult to injury there.
Yeah, I mean she did jump from the attic, so
it's realistic, sure, but it's the end of the movie, man. Like,
right.
why we gotta throw
this
another
movie
injury
doesn't
at her?
Live in realism, so it's not.
I was gonna say, yeah. Oh man, if we don't show her breaking her legs, everybody's not gonna buy into everything else in this movie.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. There's not creatures that my third eye can see because Barbara Crampton survived the jump out of the attic.
That's at least a 20-foot jump. I mean,
I don't think they invented the superhero landing yet.
That's right.
The 3-point landing.
Yeah. I just thought, like, yeah, it's a little messed up. She goes through all that and like, yeah, you survived, but you broke your ankle, or you broke your leg.
They had $20,000 left in the budget. They're like, oh, what are we gonna do with this?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's give a broken leg prosthetic.
Well, what are you gonna do with the rest of 10 grand? Well, we'll just split it up.
Right. Maybe it goes missing. I don't remember seeing 10 grand, do you? Wink, wink.
All of a sudden, this is a $20,000 prosthetic leg.
Right. Yeah, they write it off. Yeah, listen, man. You don't know how much these things cost. Mm-hmm. We had to build multiple of them.
Yeah. 7 of them to be exact.
7, right.
70 grand.
Yeah, it's just a weird way to end the movie.
Your hero woman breaking her legs.
Right, and also, to be fair, she's not the hero. They make her out to be the hero, but she's the cause of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And she at first I kept thinking like, well, this is kind of interesting because you have the female protagonist who's kind of the villain, where she goes above and beyond what she should be doing, and she wants this to happen. And I kept thinking Jeffrey Combs, Crawford, he's the real hero of the story. But it's really, they're both the hero, I guess. But to me, she didn't come across as the heroine.
Right.
No, you're wrong. It's Brownlee.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wanted him to make it, but the way he goes out is just too goddamn good.
Yeah, you don't know Lovecraft. Anyway.
No, well, I've heard. Let's just say he probably wouldn't be happy with the HBO series.
He's rolling around in his grave with Ken Foree survived.
Just constant like 360s. I keep hearing this weird whirring sound coming from his grave.
Oh man. Racism.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about HP Lovecraft, to be honest. So I knew he was an older writer. I didn't realize how old he was. He was born in like 1890.
Yeah.
I thought he was around like Tolkien, like 1920, 1930 kind of thing.
Nope. Gothic era.
Yeah, he's old as shit.
And that's why he's burning in hell.
That's probably what's happening if that's what you believe in. But he gave us Cthulhu, so.
Did.
And that's an awesome Metallica song. Go check it out. Call of Cthulhu.
Gave us Cthulhu, gave us From Beyond, gave us Re-Animator,
Madness.
In the Mouth of Madness, bunch of great stuff.
Yeah, it's just, you it's one of those things where do you separate the art from the artist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because he was a raging asshole in real life.
Well, luckily these movies have been able to extract the good
Yes.
from his writing.
That's true. Yeah, and you take creative freedoms.
Yep. It's Stuart Gordon's now. It ain't yours.
Yep. Suck on it,
Asshole.
Mr. Lovecraft.
So Catherine lands, breaks her leg, and the neighbors all come out to see the commotion, including the neighbor from the beginning. The neighbor says she's called the fire department and asks Catherine what happened. And she says exactly what Jeffrey Combs says at the beginning. It ate him. And then the credits.
The end scene should have been, oh my God, my leg. It hurts. Scene.
It's just cramp.
Is the
It's
end
cramp.
of the movie where she's laughing
Yes, she cackles.
meant to be
Yeah.
that she's like got whatever the creatures are in her? Is that
Look,
the thing? It's
you don't
sort of-
cackle without having a little bit of mental craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my experience working in New York, walking the streets, anytime someone was cackling, you tried to avoid those people. You wanted to, like, all right, I'm going to go on the other side of the road now, because those people were probably a little crazy.
Right. Yeah. You stay away from people that cackle. That's for
Yeah.
damn sure.
Yeah, that's a big rule.
life lesson for everyone out there.
Yep.
That's I'll definitely make sure to tell my kid that. Listen, Dan Jr. or Danielle, if someone's cackling, turn around and walk the other way.
Yeah.
Give a
Is
wide
that-
berth.
Very wide berth.
Is that before or after you tell them they can't high five or hug or anything like that?
Well, that's if I have two kids. But if it's the one, it's cackling. I draw the line at cackling. Everything else is free game. Someone comes up with offering candy, you go. I say you
Unless
take
if they
that.
start cackling.
Yeah, if they're cackling, then turn around.
And that's the end of the movie. It's fun. It's
It's a good
fun movie. If you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest it. It's possible that you haven't seen it. Yeah. If you like Re-Animator especially too, check this one out.
100%. And that, yeah, I think the endorsement of the non-horror fan here should go a long way to some watchers.
I agree.
You know.
That's a great way to say it, Mark. I would say if this is something, because it's not overly gory. I mean, it's gory, but
Yeah,
like it's not.
I mean,
bloody
to both
gore.
your standards, it's probably not.
Yeah.
Back
It's more slimy than it is
Yeah.
gory.
Right, but I mean, yeah, obviously you see Ken Foree skeleton. There's a guy who's just like dripping flesh. Heads get torn off, but it's not bloody. There's not like entrails coming out and blood splattering everywhere. But yeah, it does satisfy the gore hound in you. It's cheesy acting. You get nudity in it, and obviously it's quality. Yeah, it really just it checks off all the boxes, man. It has great creature design, hammy acting, Ken Foree in boxers, tight underwear. So I feel like that's a box that you check off, right?
Yeah.
It's got something for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't matter what race, gender, sexual orientation. There's definitely something in this movie for you.
Yeah, you got Barbara Crampton naked and you got Ken Foree half naked.
There you go.
Like, come on, man. This is the movie.
Would you guys do anything to make this movie better?
I don't know. I don't think so. I like this movie a lot. This is right up there with Re-Animator. Two movies that are cult. This one should be a cult classic if it hasn't reached that status. And you never really hear about it, so judging from that, it probably hasn't as the same level as Re-Animator. Yeah, I like that it's set in really the house the hospital. Two very creepy places, obviously, in an insane asylum and a mad scientist's house. The creatures are phenomenal. The practical effects are top notch. I don't know. I don't think you can. I wouldn't change anything about it.
Yeah. Make it longer and grittier. No,
Yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah, the old standby. Make it 15 minutes longer and grittier.
No, I think the only thing that I wish for that didn't happen was I was hoping that nurse doctor from the insane asylum had a death from one of the creatures rather than just Jeffrey Combs eating her eye out or something like that, or whatever happened there. I don't know exactly what I was looking for, but I always like when somebody's such an asshole about things, when we know the truth, to have them see the truth before they die, sort of thing.
Okay.
Sure.
You know, is all I would want, but I don't know how you would put it in that movie because there'd be no reason for those things to be there.
Okay.
You know, sort of thing. But that's about it. That's the only thing that was, you know, that I wanted to happen that didn't happen. But it's just the, you know, type of revenge stuff in these type of movies that I like to see.
Maybe have Dr. Pretorius like rip her in half or something.
Yeah, yeah,
That'd
or you know, even that little thing come out of his head and go in through her skull or something.
Yeah.
You know, just something like that. Not the same thing he gave the two characters we don't care about out by the ambulance dock. You know, so yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I wouldn't really change much. I was thinking it probably would have been interesting to see like as we were talking about trying to figure out if Barbara Crampton's character was the antagonist or the protagonist, and it would have been interesting if they leaned more into her being like some sort of antagonist, like maybe she had a history with Pretorius previous to him, because we never really see too much about his, like we get mention of his like weird kind of sex life, but we never really dive too far into it. So maybe she had some sort of connection with him and she was obsessed with the resonator in terms of like make a connection with him again.
What if, because she mentions what is it, the dementia, is it?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
schizophrenia.
So like her father had schizophrenia, right? So, like it's a family member of hers has schizophrenia, and maybe Pretorius kind of used her like, I can help your family, but you got to visit my sex dungeon first.
Right.
And she was young and naive, and he did some crazy shit to her, maybe, or not. Maybe it doesn't even have to be crazy. He just, he had sex with her, whatever, just basic. And she wants to get back at him, or maybe that's the kind of connection that you get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know necessarily if it would make it better. It's just something that I was thinking of, something that would connect the dots a little more.
Sure.
Now, throw it at you. When you guys were watching this for the first time, was there at any point you were worried at the very end was just going to be a shot of her in a mental hospital, and it was just that she was crazy and none of that happened?
No.
Sort of thing?
No,
No,
I did not.
Okay.
I never came across.
Yeah, thank God.
I was hoping that didn't happen, but that was crossing my mind, especially with the cackling at the end.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a dissolve or a crossfade or something, and it's just her in a padded room.
Right.
Yeah, I would have hated that
from the beginning.
That would have been a bummer.
Yeah. Okay. That was the only one that was being really cynical about this.
I guess that's it. You guys want to plug your shit?
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at DAquino122. My name is Dan Aquino. So, go follow me there. Follow Stranger Damies at Stranger Damies on Instagram and Twitter. And that's about it.
So we have our other podcast, our D&D podcast, as Dan mentioned, Stranger Damies, airs every Wednesday. Our next session, I believe at this point, the episode that airs before this will be the last one of the main story session before Extra Life. So the next time you'll see the continued adventures of the Wild Stallions will be for our Extra Life. So be sure to tune in for that. And then we have a special one, which we won't spoil here. That'll be the following episodes after that. And then we have our gaming podcast, Game Vault Pod, which you can find by searching the Game Vault Podcast. We were also on Twitter and Instagram at Game Vault Pod. And then, as I had mentioned, we're doing Extra Life, which is our 24-hour gaming marathon to raise money for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Starts at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll do a 4-hour or so, maybe a little less session of Stranger Damies, and then we'll get into our video game playing. Playing some first-person shooters, Jackbox Party Pack stuff, multiplayer games, racing, retro, new stuff, just everything. If you have any suggestions, feel free. You can send it to basically any of our socials. If you happen to be interacting with one of us and you just want to throw it out there, feel free. The website, by the time this episode airs, will be live. So the tiny URL should be on one of the Twitters that has been mentioned. And you can donate there until the end of the year. But as I've been saying, you can donate whenever you want or not at all. If you can't donate, I understand it's been, a rough year. best thing would be to signal boost it or just join us in the chat and just, during the stream. But if you are planning on donating and timing doesn't really matter for you, like you don't need it for paychecks or anything like that, I'd recommend holding on to it until November 7th because there's probably going to be some fun things that you can put your money towards to make us do or goals for us to hit for certain things. So, be on lookout for that during the stream. And then, whenever you donate, we will make sure to shout you out on one of the streams because we do stream 4 nights a week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday or Saturday and Sunday, and every other Monday. So if you donate anytime between when you're hearing this till the end of the year, you will get a shout out from us. So once again, November 7th, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard.
Okay. And this is They Called Us a Movie. You can find us at theycalledusamovie.podbean.com and on all podcast streaming apps just by searching They Called Us a Movie. We're themaindamie.com. You can find us on all social by just searching The Main Damie. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at The Main Damie. We're also a proud member of Geek Vibes Nation. You can find them at gvnation.com and on all socials and podcast streaming apps just by looking for Geek Vibes Nation. Bunch of great shows on there. Top 10 with Tia, Scene and Nerd, Gutting the Sacred Cow, bunch of other great shows. If there's something that you are interested in that is slightly geek-like, you surely can find a show for you. That's going to wrap it up. I'm at the AntLVec on Twitter. You can hit me up there or at the Main Damie. I'm there too. If you have any questions, comments, want to suggest a movie for us, hit us up at themaindamie@gmail.com. And we'll probably get to it eventually once we wrap up our 31 Days of Horror. Once again, themaindamie.com is doing 31 Days of Horror all month long, so check that website for a whole bunch of articles throughout the month. And that's going to wrap it up. This week, the director of From Beyond was Stuart Gordon. So, for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony LaVecchio telling Stuart Gordon, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you?